self-care is more than going for a spa. It's more than just going and, meeting up with friends. It's more about you being very intentional about it, that these are the things that make me happy. Life is long in one way, but also life is short. So make the most of it. Do the things that you like doing.
That's something that when I got into my spirituality journey, I learned about a lot. Subconsciously, you take up all these beliefs and they're running your life.
Men were always hunters, right? They would go hunt. I think it comes from that sort of belief system. I think it takes a lot of effort for a man to, just say, I'm tired. It's always that, I am the man, I'm wearing the pants in the house. All this childhood trauma is now translating into us being diagnosed with various other mental illnesses. And that's when I realized that I need to look after myself, because I was bordering depression. And I said that if this is happening to me as a CEO, what must be happening to my staff?
You're listening to the Men's Forum,
your guide to being a better man.
Here we talk about everything to do with dealing with the nuances of life as a man.
This is your safe space to finding solutions to any problem you could be facing as a man.
We're your hosts Rajveer and Shalin, and we're sitting down with guests who share their personal experiences and insights, adding depth and new perspectives to our discussions. Self-love, a topic many men don't associate themselves with. Often overlooked as a concept for men, self-love is actually a crucial element in leading a happier, healthier life. Joining us is Toseef Din, CEO of one of the top hospitals in Kenya, who has a compelling story of climbing from the lowest ranks to the pinnacle of leadership. Despite starting her career being paid peanuts, Toseef's journey to CEO was fueled by self-love and resilience, proving that nurturing oneself is essential even when going through the toughest of challenges. In this episode, we delve into why self-love is not just for women and how embracing it could lead to profound changes in how men view themselves and their interactions with others. Toseef shares her insights on practical steps men can take to cultivate self-love and discusses the positive outcomes it can bring to both personal well-being and professional success. So, if you've ever brushed off self-love as not for you, stay tuned. This conversation might just change your mind and improve your life. Welcome to the show, Toseef. So grateful to have you here.
Thank you.
It's crazy. Every time Shalin, because he's the one who organizes the guests coming out of the podcast, he'll be like, so she's coming. And I'm like, whoa, how'd you manage that?
I was like, okay, I don't know how we're going. When you said yes, I'm like, guess what, in capital and in bold, big breakthrough. And he's like, what? I'm like, she said yes. I'm like, yeah, we were so excited. We'll show you the chat after, for sure.
Okay, I'll look forward to it.
So you can start off by telling our viewers who you are, what you do. And I know this podcast, we're going to be talking a lot about self-care and wellness,
Right.
which I'm excited about.
So firstly, thanks to Shalin and Rajveer for having me here. When Shalin first approached and he said, to see if I do this men's forum podcast, and he sent me a lot of links and information about it. I'm like, a men's forum? And I'm invited as a woman. You don't get many opportunities like this. So thank you very much for that opportunity to begin with. I thank the God Almighty that we have such platforms where women can have a voice and they can reach to a wider audience of not only women, but even men. And I think that's a very encouraging enterprise that, has been formulated. So congratulations to you both for that and keep up the good work. Who is Toseef? I think the way you've introduced it, CEO, MP Shah Hospital. and that really is all thanks to the God Almighty. I'm really thankful. Humble beginnings for me, but Toseef is, of course, the CEO of the MP Shah Hospital, a mother of 3, a wife, a daughter, a sister, and right now, of course, a very full-time job at the MP Shah Hospital. And that's my journey, really. Those are all the roles I play as Toseef.
How'd you get there?
Good question.
What's your journey been like?
Yeah, good question. So, my family, I'm born, bred, and trained in Kenya, and been here forever. My journey really started, when I would say really that, when I really joined MP Shah Hospital, that was a defining moment for me. My background is finance. I hold a master's and bachelor's degree in finance. So I come from numbers and statistical analysis, etc. But I think over the years, it was a lot of career defining moments for me. For example, when I first chose to be an accountant. And at that time, there were not many careers or mentors. You hear a lot about mentorship and coaching and counseling now. But back, that was about 26 years ago, you wouldn't hear these things. So it was very difficult for me at that time to choose a career. And my grandmother was very instrumental in ensuring that all the girls in our home were educated. So when I went to her after I finished my Form 4 and I told her, so now, Mama, that's what we call her, I said, Mama, so what should I do, And she looked at me and she's like, I think you should do accounts. So I said, accounts? Why? She's like, I hear, Mama, that, IT is the in thing, back then, everyone was going for IT, learning Excel and, those kind of things. So she's like, no, you do accounts, your eyes won't get spoiled. In IT, your eyes will get spoiled. So I said, okay, fine. And I went in and I started my career as an accountant. I worked and climbed the ladder from a very basic audit assistant. And that was quite an experience. I remember my first job was actually sitting in an Ascari's Nyumba, because that was the maid office for us. And I was given this whole sack of petty cash vouchers to see if you need to enter these vouchers by the end of the day. And I was like, is that my job? He's like, yeah, and you're going to get a gross total of 5,000 shillings at the end of the month. And so it was very exciting for me. Gross total. And of course, I started the journey with these small beginnings, and then I worked into an audit manager position, and then slowly and steadily I went into financial controller. At MP Shah, I think, is where I really rose. I started off as a head of finance, and then a few years later I became the acting chief operations officer, and then again a few years later I was confirmed finally, and then I became the acting chief executive officer, and then finally a couple of years ago I was made the CEO of the hospital. I've been in MP Shah Hospital for the last 14 years, and that's really my journey. I think I've taken every little step, everything that I had in my stride, always learning, having a curious mind, not thinking that I've got the self-limiting beliefs that I can't do this just because I'm a woman. And one thing that I often see that, MP Shah Hospital's CEO is a woman, a Muslim woman, a hijabi woman. There are always so many hurdles. So I think for me, it's to shed that title and to say, I'm a CEO. Give me the work. Let's get the work done.
I think we've definitely seen the work, because 14 years ago, MP Shah was quite small, and you guys have really expanded and brought in the new technology, which is awesome.
Absolutely. And it doesn't go, without saying that I've got a very supportive board and I've got a very supportive team. I may say that, I'm the one receiving the awards, but I also receive the backlashes when things don't go well. So I think it's a very supportive environment. In fact, I'm very blessed to have an environment like MP Shah Hospital, not only because I want to keep my job, but I think the team has been very incredibly supportive.
And I'm pretty sure you guys are making a very big impact on lives.
Absolutely. I think healthcare is, when someone asks me, Toseef, what is different between MP Shah Hospital as a healthcare facility and the other jobs that you have had? The other jobs, they are more tangible. When you are selling a good, you are making a net profit margin. But here, Charlene, the business is different. I wouldn't even call it business. I think these are heart-touching moments. For me to be working in a hospital, I think you can be working for, a salary, but you're also working for blessings. It's very overwhelming when you've treated a patient and that patient comes and says, Toseef, God bless you. You don't hear that very often in a job like, maybe you're working in a hotel. Don't say God bless you. They say, okay, good, good work. So for me, I think it's a very big honor to work in a healthcare facility where we are touching lives, we are transforming lives, we are saving lives, we are repatriating patients in excellent health. We are really a different sector and a sector that is really embedded in compassionate care.
You mentioned, the obstacles of being a woman, being a hijabi.
Yeah.
So that journey, climbing that ladder, I'm sure there was a lot of hard times involved. Am I right to say that?
Well, yes, there have been some decisions that had to be made as a woman that perhaps a man would not be asked a question like, how do you balance this? It's always the women who ask these questions. How do you balance, with work? I don't see these questions like men being asked these questions. So I often ask, why don't you ask the men this question? So of course, every career growth, every life has its experiences and it has challenges. But for me, I think the perspective perspective one needs to look at is that these challenges can be opportunities for you. I remember a few years ago when I was just starting my career, I was a very young mom. I got my first son when I was 22 years old. And around that same time, I got an opportunity to relocate for a very high paying job to Mauritius because they were looking for still a young person and everything. And I had to decline that offer. And it was a very difficult decision for me. I was like, no, I want to go, I want to do this and that and the other. But I couldn't make that decision at that moment. But what I realized over time that sometimes you have to prioritize some things over others and find yourself here as the CEO of the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah.
So definitely everything happens within your destiny for the greater purpose.
Absolutely. Shalene, I'm very spiritually embedded. I just feel that, God has his ways of playing things around. In my religious scriptures, it's always written, and I always quote this, that even a leaf cannot move from point A to B if God has not directed it. So just the way, when we get accolades, when we get appreciation, and quickly we say, oh, thank you for this award. Thank you for this. We realize that we are quick to thank the God Almighty. And we say, oh, thank you, God, you did this, you did that for me. But why don't we look at it in the same perspective that when we are inflicted with pain, when we've got challenges, it's also coming from somewhere. Because at that moment, you need to be able to just ground yourself. It's like, yes, even this has come from there. So balance that. It's not always. And I think also to encourage the audience that, when we often get a lot of appreciation and we grow on in life, we realize that we thank everyone, our family, our husband and our partners and everything. But then we say, oh yeah, thanks God too. I think we should have more spirituality in us. And I know it's a very sensitive topic for many. But for me, I would say that my journey has been defined by me always connected to the God Almighty, knowing that there is a stronger power, there's a stronger force out there who's making things run and keeping us in the place where we belong.
What kind of tools do you have in place to consistently ground yourself in that? So you mentioned that, when people have hard time, they're like, they don't think that this is here for a reason. Mm-hmm. So how do you kind of ground yourself in that?
A lot of questions that are asked, and especially this happens when people get a lot of challenges in life. And the first question, when they kneel down to the God Almighty, they say, why me? Why did this happen to me? But I often ask that, why not you? Why not you? You're part of the human race. You have not come with an elixir of life that nothing is going to happen to you, or you're immune or of some sort. Of course, you're a human. You will, have losses. You'll have happy moments. You'll have sad moments. You'll lose your spouse. You'll lose your parents. You'll even, lose your children. So these things are part. And sometimes, they're easier said than done. When you lose someone, it's no matter who in the world consoles you, you know that void, it will only take time and patience that is going to heal it. So for me, I think to be able to have those tools as you talk, my day starts very simply. I wake up at about 5:30 a.m. and I start with prayer, and then I don't sleep after that. And I think that moment of prayer, gratitude grounds me in many ways. But I also have my low moments. I can't say that I've got everything in order, or I've got the perfect example, to ensure that I am praying 5 times a day and I'm fasting 30 days, for Ramadan. I also have my lows. And I think when that happens to me, I think gratitude comes very, very strongly for me. Very, very strongly. I'm always looking at the people above me who've got things and, passions that they have been able to fulfill and everything. But why am I not looking at the people under me who are still suffering, who perhaps cannot even get their daily bread on their table? So I think that power of gratitude to ground you, especially when you're inflicted with challenges, has been very transformational for me.
Where did the sense of empowering people come from?
From God. I would really say that, Shalene, it is really from God. I think from the very beginning, I wouldn't say that I was a very religious person. But in 2015, I got the opportunity of going to our annual pilgrimage to Saudi. They say it's a very blessed opportunity. And a lot of people decide to go there, perhaps, when they're a little bit older in life, to repent. But I got an opportunity, a bit earlier when I was still young, when I still had time to do more sin. But I think that really changed me to be able to see where we really come in as human beings. Again, religion is a very sensitive topic. But when you look at it from a management point of view, and keep religion on one side, I think it comes through a lot of compassionate leadership because of the way I started. People want to grow, they want to excel in life, they want to have more qualifications under their belt. It's every Kenyan's dream to drive the latest car. I don't think there's anyone who's telling you there's having fun in using public transport. Everyone aspires. And I think that leadership is about using your power to influence others. That if you have been given that power, how can you make life better? At MP Shah Hospital, I think every single time, I've developed mentorship programs, employee support groups, mental health and well-being programs. A few weeks ago, I was with my team in Karura Forest. I said, let's all go for the CEO's walk. So I think it's always about remaining connected, and we should not lose that human connection. It's not about a CEO and an employee. It's first human. Can you connect with people at a human level before you bring in the barriers of positions?
How's the transformation when you have that personal touch with all your employees?
Then you're supposed to, then you realize you're in a situation where you can put yourself in their shoes. You can put yourself in their shoes and see that, what if this happens to me? Like, I'll tell you that, running a hospital is very complex, Shalin. People think it's such a big hospital. Oh, she's running it. She's got her act in order. She's got a fantastic team. But healthcare business comes with its challenges. It's like you're running a healthcare enterprise like a hotel. Remember, we have catering, we have laundry, we have customer service. Yeah. And in addition to all that a hotel provides, now you're also treating them for various illnesses. So the whole business model is extremely complex. It's not something that is easy, to say in the morning you wake up and everything works. It's complex and it comes with its challenges. But then I think over time and experience, you realize that you navigate through them.
It's really nice that you bring that up. And we had this conversation one day of putting yourself in other people's shoes.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest ways to navigate life because you start treating people with more empathy and more compassion.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you do that, then they treat you back with a sense of respect.
Yeah. Because you feel them, right?
Yeah.
You feel them. Like, I'll tell you that the job sometimes becomes so pressure. Like, I call my CHRO and I said, have you recruited this? What is the talent development looking like? What is the retention policy? Have you engaged this staff and everything? And I realized that she's got 10,000 things on her table. But when I put myself in her shoes, then that phone call that I make has words like, please, kindly, Edna, are you free to talk for a minute? Those kind of things then come when you put yourself, because it's high pressure. It's high pressure. But how do you constantly keep reminding yourself that everyone is suffering this pressure? How can I make my workplace environment better? Because we spend more time with our work colleagues than we spend with our family. And if you're going to be miserable at home and at work, then life will be miserable in its entirety.
You mentioned mental health. And you mentioned a walk at Karura in the same sentence.
Yeah.
Can we dive deeper into that?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people say, Toseef, since when did you start talking about mental health? You're not a healthcare practitioner or a psychiatrist or a counselor. Why are you talking about it? You're a person of number crunching. You tell us about the net profit margin. But there are two pivotal events that happened in my life that made me realize how mental health is so important for us, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of your age, irrespective of your ethnicity or your culture. The first event happened when my sister moved to Australia. And coming from a very big family, our Asian families, we've got uncles and chachas and chachis. We've got big extended families. In weddings, we invite the whole clan from different parts of the world. So we come from a very big family. So when my sister located to Australia with her husband, in a few months, she was so happy. She's, I've landed in my dream job and I'm doing great and I'm doing fine and things are going okay. And she got her firstborn girl and she was very happy. But Rajveer, things started changing for her. She started becoming lonely. She started getting depressed no matter how much we would talk to her on WhatsApp. And Australia is a good 1 day's flight. So it's not like something she can come for. And unfortunately, she was diagnosed with severe depression, up to a point where she was almost harming herself, and up to a point where she had to go for extended periods of rehabilitation. And at that time, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, come on, you're strong. Remember, we are 4 girls in the family. Mom has raised us like men. You're strong and everything. But I realized that she was fighting a battle every single day of her life. She had to go in for constant therapy, counseling. And the kind of things she used to tell me, today I'm coloring. I'm like, you're coloring? She's like, yeah, I'm coloring. So then next day she's telling me, I'm told to make this jigsaw puzzles. I was like, what's going on, And that's when it triggered my interest, and I started realizing, when it happens to somebody of your own, then you really realize that there's something more deeper in it. And that's when I really started taking a lot of interest. The second change for me when I started learning about mental health was during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was one of the most testing periods for me as a leader. It was the year I was made a CEO. And I can tell you, to be made a CEO in the midst of a pandemic is not fun. It's not fun. It was a very crappy year because now everything fell on me. And Rajveer, at that time, I started realizing that people can die so quickly. Even though the impacts of the pandemic were not as felt in Kenya the way they were in other parts of the world, when you would see the death rates going into thousands and millions, in my hospital, I saw people who have worked with very closely on a daily basis dying, and their spouses dying, and their parents dying. It was like death everywhere. And it was very difficult for me to cope. I couldn't see that, their families crying, shouting, screaming. The mortuary is right behind my office. It was a very overwhelming moment for me. And that's when I realized that I need to look after myself, because I was bordering depression. And I said that if this is happening to me as a CEO, what must be happening to my staff? People who are working here on a daily basis. What's going on in their minds? And that's when I really became passionate about mental health and well-being. I started organizing counseling sessions. We started hiring a full-time counselor in the hospital. We formed support groups where people would come and talk about their problems. We would suddenly realize a very young nurse becoming a widow overnight, or childless, or being orphaned where both her parents died. And I think over the years, we kept building this program. We kept talking. We keep having mental health talks. About 3 years ago, I started the CEO walk in Karura Forest. And I said, let's go to Karura Forest. Even we were very few at that time, 10, 15 staff. Slowly, we became 50. About 2-3 weeks ago when we went, we were about 65. So steadily, we are building that. And I think for us as leaders, what is most important is for us to create education, awareness, and training, because mental health is real. There's a lot of stigma of mental health in Kenya, and it's still been pegged as the white man's disease. Say, it's not something, come on, us, we are strong, we will navigate. But sitting and realizing that this is not only something that is leaders suffering or hospital suffering, our children may also be suffering. Because some of us, as much as we are accomplished and established, we also need to know that we come from very fractured households where there has been alcohol abuse. Our fathers have been beating our mothers, and vice versa. You may never know, And coming from families where there has been a lot of sexual abuse. And all this childhood trauma is now translating into us being diagnosed with various other mental illnesses. And when we get into alcohol abuse, we realize that these are things when we are picking when we were very young. Subconsciously, those have become our beliefs. And those beliefs have now inculcated in our hardcore thoughts. So that's really my journey about being a mental health person. I'm always conscious about it. In fact, when we now get marketing proposals, they say, let's talk to Toseef about mental health. Then we'll get So it's not like that. For me, it's a very personal thing. It's about ensuring that people are able to have a conducive working environment. We go back to our families when we can also be enjoying with them. You can't have a toxic work environment and then you go back home and you're beating your children, because you're stressed at work. So that balance is what I'm trying to create.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
You mentioned beliefs, thoughts, and of course, in line with that comes actions and the subconscious. That's something that when I got into my spirituality journey, I learned about a lot. Subconsciously, you take up all these beliefs and they're running your life, but you don't really know that they're running your life.
Yes.
How have you kind of maneuvered that, and what advice would you give someone to start becoming aware of that, so that because again, change starts with awareness, right? So how can they be aware of that?
They say a lot of things about thoughts and beliefs, and Marcus Aurelius says that what makes you is your thoughts. Every day, you may be thinking a lot of things in your mind. And now that you anchor the conversation around spirituality, we say, how do we control our inner being? They say, every good thought that you think and don't execute is a reward. Every good thought that you think and execute gives you twice the amount of reward. Every bad act that you think and don't execute, you still get a reward for it. And every bad act that you thought and as you executed, you get sin for it. So there's also a very strong belief in that you can be thinking a lot of things and not doing. That means show that you're a good person from inside. And I think we all come from different belief systems. I'll give you an example of a parent, for example. When we teach our children our core beliefs, don't lie, be honest, don't speak to strangers. The small, the basic things we have grown up with. Don't lie, you'll be punished by God. Those are some of the things we grow up with. And then when we see our parents teaching those things, and then when a phone call comes from work and you pick up the phone and you tell the child, pick up the phone and say, I'm not here.
Yeah.
So what are you teaching then your children? Now you have confused them completely. That now you've taught them not to lie, but now you're telling them when the phone comes, tell my boss, I'm not at home, I've forgotten my phone here. So I think the way we are also parenting is a very strong belief system that we are creating for our children. We must be those role models also for our children. Whatever we are telling them, we should be also able to practice it. Because as we were talking, beliefs, our thoughts, which result into action, but more importantly, emotions, how we will act and behave. I think that's very important for us. Now, how do you change these beliefs? Sometimes, our belief system is so strong. How do you change this belief system? I think it's all in the power of habit. Like if, for example, I know that every day I must reward myself with something that maybe 5 donuts, sugar coated with chocolate chip. That's my reward. I've worked so hard and everything. But as much as I'm rewarding myself, I also must look for a way to look after my health because I may have too much sugar in my body. Now, it's the power of habits. Just the way we work for habits, for other things, we have to work for the power of how we change how to practice. And I think that becomes then very transformational. They say that, you have to keep doing something for 21 days before you really realize that, it works for you. Just the way when we get into fitness, for example, we say, today is 1st of January, 2024. I am going to have these fitness goals. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm not going to have any alcohol. Cigarettes are off the radar. And then you realize when it comes to March, April, we go back. And that comes the power of that belief system that you have. But more important than that, the discipline that you have towards getting that belief system. A lot of people say, today I want to go do my fitness. When I come home, the first thing I should see is my joggers. So I'll wear my joggers, it's going to remind me. Then it works for 1 day, 2 day, 3rd day, you're back to the same because you are not able to control your mind. You don't have that discipline, that strength. It's okay. It's just one donut. It's just one, one. So I think there's a lot of power in how we control ourselves. And I think that can really help if we want to really change those beliefs.
I think there's also that level of cognitive dissonance when you're trying to change the beliefs.
Oh, yes. It's a struggle. It's a major struggle for everyone. I think that comes again with practice, with patience. Humans want to see results immediately, but they don't realize that those results take time and hard work. Nothing comes easy. To be able to challenge, your mind to change, I can tell you, Rajveer, it's a mammoth of a task. I was recently introduced to a very funny diet, and my friend told me, Toseef, don't have any dairy, don't have any sugar, and don't have any carbs. And you will see, your skin is going to glow. And, people will say this is a changed and rejuvenated you and all. It's like, okay, but what's my goal? Why am I doing this? Am I unhappy with my body? Am I unhappy with my skin? What am I doing first? So I wouldn't say that I totally threw that recommendation out of the window, but I started controlling myself, and I love sweets. I love, I've got a sweet tooth, but I say, okay, fine, today I can eat this, but I can't eat it every day. It's not sustainable for me. Diets are a great way to, center yourself to achieve certain goals. But I encourage every diet to be sustainable. Something that doesn't, because some diets can actually stress you mentally. You start becoming unhappy with your life. Because remember, food is a source of pleasure for us when we eat food. Because when we eat food, it's not only about the taste, it's how we see the food, how we smell the food, and then finally how we taste that food. It's not only about tasting directly. All these pleasure centers come in activation. So I think that's my thoughts on the belief system. Yeah.
Nice. And also, this current lifestyle that we have, having a strict routine, people aren't really self-aware that you can get distracted.
Yes.
And when you're distracted, then you derail from that goal that you were aiming for. And then it's all about now the pleasures.
Yeah.
The short-term pleasures.
Yeah.
Instant gratification.
Yeah,
right?
instant gratification. Absolutely right. It happens. It happens a lot.
So you mentioned diets.
Now you guys look very fit. I don't think you guys need to talk about diets.
No. I was not going to talk about dads, but I think that's a good segue into self-care. So what's your take on that?
About self-care, I think first at the onset, I would like to say that, self-care is a holistic concept for everyone. Lately, a lot of things I've said that women do self-care and, I need me time and I need to spend my time with myself. So the first thing is self-care is about everyone. Yeah, whether you're a child, whether you're a parent, whether you're a professional individual, you're a mother, you're a father, it's for everyone. I think for me, the most important thing is the way I schedule my board meetings. I say, today I'm having this board meeting from 9 to 12 p.m. I've prepared a report for my board chairman. I'm going to do this. Why don't we have that structure for self-care? We say, this is a time for me to do self-care. And if anyone calls me and say, I'm in a very important meeting with myself. You schedule your time for self-care. It has to be very intentional. I can speak from experience that, the job that I am in, starting on very early, sometimes stopping very late, it's demanding. But the time comes in my day that I say, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. I can tell that to myself. Before I was shy. I say, okay, I'm just staying at home. I'm taking leave, my precious leave. I used to feel a lot of guilt. What am I doing at home? Why should I do this? No, I should be working. I should. Should is a very strong word. So about 3-4 years ago, I took it upon myself. I said, sometimes I can take leave on Friday. It doesn't mean that I have to have things to do. I can sleep without an alarm. I can go to the Karura forest. I can meditate. I can have a coffee with my friend. I can go to my husband's office and take him for a date. So I think that scheduled time and being intentional about your self-care is very important. Self-care is more than going for a spa. It's more than just going and, meeting up with friends. It's more about you being very intentional about it, that these are the things that make me happy. Life is long in one way, but also life is short. So make the most of it. Do the things that you like doing. Work never finishes, and I risk losing my job saying these things, but the time comes in your life where you need to say that I can't do this anymore. And as a leader, sometimes it becomes very difficult that, I've got an image to protect. What will people say? That's a statement that has eaten half the world. What will people say? Living and conforming to other people's standards. It was a very high pressure thing for me. I like, what will she say? Oh, I can't do this. What will my staff say? But I realized when I speak more about it, and I like, it's okay. You can take your leave. You've got 30 days leave as per your contract. Why are you not taking your leave? To say sometimes I feel I don't know what to do. What do I do at home? And another staff told me to say, I've got a mother-in-law at home. I can't take leave, I'm like, but you can do things that you like doing, being intentional about what you want to really do with your life. It's so important for us. Scheduling that time, being intentional about it, whatever it takes your fancy. We hear a lot of things, exercise, meditate, but what's what works for you is what I feel.
You mentioned meditate twice.
Yeah.
Do you practice it?
In the morning, every day I do. When I wake up for my prayers, I wouldn't say I go into extensive periods because I need to get to job, but at least 5 to 10 minutes, I'm able to just sit with myself quietly. There's something very peaceful about the mornings. Very peaceful. I think there's some sort of silence around your environment and you're able to connect with yourself. And I think breathing is equally powerful as well. So I think it really helps. But I know meditation is not everyone's cup of tea. I have a 20-year-old son and I'm like, Arman, you should meditate. It's like, no way, mom, what does that? I don't have the patience to do that, So it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think it's a very great exercise and I encourage everyone to do it. Yeah.
I think that again just comes from, there's a stigma around meditation.
Yeah.
Sadly.
A lot. Yes.
It's like, I don't have the patience. But again, it's giving yourself time. Like you mentioned, connecting with yourself. And a lot of people don't do that. I think the first basis that needs to be set is self-love and respect for yourself. And then once people connect with that, okay, I actually should love myself. Then the next thing is, okay, here are the tools to do that. And the tools are meditation, going on walks, breath work.
Yeah. But Rajveer, it's very important that this peace also comes from ourselves. A lot of people say that when I finish this work, then I'm going to do this. When I become 25, then I'm going to do this. When I retire, then I'm going to do this. I think that conforming ourselves to this kind of beliefs is also very difficult. I see a lot of people, and I'm not against retreats. Yeah, I'm really not against retreats. I see a lot of people traveling far and wide and going into solace, sanctity, and all those things. But that peace also should come from yourself first. You may be sitting in a fantastic retreat on a Tibetan mountain somewhere, but here you're not settled, and that peace first needs to come from yourself. A lot of people will give you, why don't you take a break? Go, but you realize first you need to ground yourself and identify. So I'm a very strong believer not only of meditation, but also of journaling. And I see men don't accept that practice very regularly than women. Yeah, I don't want to say that men are not doing self-care, but I think journaling is a very powerful tool. Sit and writing down your thoughts. I think when you see your thoughts written, it also helps you to be able to come with the solutions that you are mentioning. And you'll realize as you practice, like when we just talked about meditation, we said it's such a hard thing for some. But I think anything, it's about practice. When we learn a new instrument, we don't start playing it on the first day. We learn through it. When we're learning a new language, we practice it before we become proficient. So I think it's all about practice.
But also, they say charity begins at home. We should now teach our kids all these tools from the foundation.
Absolutely.
From scratch. And be like, this is the practice that you have to be in constantly.
Yes.
Just the way we were trained that we need to go to the religious center to pray or to wake up and shower. Right? We were never taught that to wear your trouser first, right? And then wear your inners later. We were always trained that the briefs come in and then the trousers. So the same thing. It's programming their minds from when they're young.
Right. And children are very malleable, very malleable. And just what I was talking about, role modeling, teaching them the right things, over and over again. I think that can be very instrumental in their journey. Like with my family, sometimes I go from a hard day's work and my daughter says, okay, Mom, play carom with me. I want to shoot myself. I was like, oh God, I'm so tired, right now. I can't do this. But I realized that my daughter's attention span is 15, maximum 20 minutes. And then she's done playing the game. If she loses, she's like, oh, I don't want to play this game. And it's done. But that is a way for her to seek my attention. If I will keep telling her no, no, no. So what we've done is we have scheduled, and again, I'm not saying that, I am this perfect parent, but we have been able to build a lot of social routines in our life. I have 3 children. My husband is a medical doctor. So we come from, very high pressure jobs the whole day. And when we come home, I think we have now managed that, look, Monday and Thursday are working days. They're very difficult. They're school nights. So we'll be trying, having an early dinner and sleeping. So the routine that we have is that after dinner, we just spend 5 minutes maybe reading about our religion, for example, why is this done? There's so many questions in religion, where is God, for example. So we ponder on that. On Fridays, we have a general knowledge session. We just say, okay, what did you learn? So the other day we were talking about butterfly effect, how things can really move in a bigger motion. And then Saturdays and Sundays, we try to have barbecues at home, or maybe we go visit our family. So I think we also have to be very intentional. But as children grow bigger, you realize that up until about 13, 14, they want to spend time with you. But after that time, they want to spend time with your friends, with their dogs, with their cats, with their online friends who they can be friends with one day and tomorrow they can befriend them. So I think that the parental pressures that also come with balancing the competing work demands and mental pressures that we have, I think we have to keep being resilient, changing ourselves and being very flexible. It's difficult to be a parent at this age now. We were brought from an era and we're almost going into a parenting talk, but I'll make this point that we were born in an era where we were allowed to get bored.
Well, yeah.
We were allowed to get bored. There was nothing like you've got these summer holidays and pack up your bag. We're going on the next flight to Thailand. We're like, you've got your holidays. Good. Sit. So we would just sit. There was no internet. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. There was nothing like, having online friends. The maximum we could do is perhaps watch, at that time, we used to have very funny programs on KBC. We just sit and we watch. And we would be allowed to get bored.
You have to wait for those.
And you have to wait. And you would end up watching those programs, the repeat of those programs, your whole holidays up to a point where you'd know what he's about to say next. But Rajveer, that boredom allowed us to become creative. I remember my childhood, I created a lot of games. I used to be the ringleader, of my compound. We used to live in Nairobi West at that time. And we had a big family. I used to have a new game. Every day we used to create a new game. We had so many variations of hide and seek. We had so many variations of Ludo. I think boredom also creates a lot of creativity, which unfortunately now is slowly getting killed. But we should try to allow, that to happen. We don't allow ourselves to get bored. When we are waiting in queues for the bank, we're on
phone
our
comes
phone.
out.
When we're waiting in the restaurant for our order, the phone comes out. We are so connected that we live now in a digital jungle, and this all affects our self-love, our all this mental being, that it's so difficult to be able to balance that, because there's also that aspect of fear of missing out. I didn't see the new designer bag that was launched. How come I didn't hear about it? So there's also that balance, that how do I still remain current and valid in this world, yet at the same time balance all these things? Because social media, I think we've heard it more than 100 times, how it's affecting us. That balance is so difficult. I struggle with it. I have often said, okay, today I'm deleting Instagram. I'm not going to be on Instagram. And I delete it for 1 month, and then the next month I'm like, it's okay, let me just do a little bit of online shopping. So I think it's so difficult to balance in this age, and parenting children in this era. It's tough.
It also hinders the mentality of think out of the box.
Yeah.
That's
Because you're not creative, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the butterfly effect, and then you did mention like when you get stuck in a line or something, the first thing that happens is the phone. I think in the past, when you are in traffic or when you do get stuck in a line and you don't have your phone or something,
you get a heart attack.
Well, now, but in the past, like there was that moment to connect with yourself.
Yeah.
To reflect a little bit,
Right.
because you have nothing else to do at that point.
Absolutely.
And it does cause that butterfly effect that now, because I'm consistently escaping from connecting with myself. So people then...
Yeah. It's about making that one small change now that is going to have a much bigger ripple effect later on. And again, going back to my childhood, there was like, okay, we are going to Chachi's house, let's go. Okay, mom, let's go. Now when you tell your children, let's go. No, I don't want to go. I want to spend time at home. But that time used to be given one hot one. Get ready. Let's go, let's go. Yeah. So that time it was very different. Now it is different. But we can't keep saying that, like, phones and internet, they have made the larger world connect. It comes with its blessings, but unfortunately it also comes with, so much, consuming of information that you're just constantly plugged.
But it's just that our thoughts are not settled. It's always all over the place.
Yeah, I think social media does bank on the fact that people are just unsettled with their thoughts.
What does social media want from us, Rajveer? They want our attention. That is what they want, because that attention is what makes money. When you have liked, you've seen, if you like something, you will keep getting things that you would want to like. I think artificial intelligence and the way our data is coded and brought, I think they're seeking our attention. And, to be able to manage that, I can tell you, it requires determination, focus, and effort.
Yeah, I was telling him I need to lock my apps now because I get distracted and I'm like, this is a bit too much.
Yeah.
But I totally understand. Sometimes it comes down to being self-aware that you're too much on your phone and you're ignoring everything that's happening around you.
Yeah.
And sometimes just doom scrolling and there's nothing literally adding value to your life.
Mindful attachment is good, but sometimes you realize an hour has gone by and you've done nothing. And that's a realization. And you feel like, you're just enjoying, Rajveer went to Thailand, Charlene has got new boxes, wow, that's great, I need to get my hands on those boxes, how come he has them and I don't have? And I think that adrenaline that it gives you. But here's the thing about social media, we are very quick to say, okay, we don't want to do this, today we won't use our phone from this time to this time. And it's so difficult to maintain those habits. You know why? Because we have not replaced it with something else. Okay, I'm stopping to use Instagram between 9 and 11 p.m. at night, but what have I replaced it with? Am I reading a book? Am I watching a movie instead? Am I connecting with my spouse? Am I going out with my children? We are not replacing. That's why we feel compelled that we must go back to it, because we don't allow ourselves to get bored.
I would say, so one of the first steps to self-care is... What I'm thinking from this conversation is reducing your screen time.
Reducing your screen time. I encourage more meditation. I encourage scheduling structured times with yourself, enjoying the activities that you love, reading books, fitness, eating a healthy meal. A lot of people underrate the transformational difference sleep makes to our lives. How much can we really sleep? A lot of people sleep very late, wake up very early in the morning. I think sleep plays a very important part in our lives to be able having nutritious meals, not just having junk food all the time. And I think all this is a sum total. You can't say today I'll only do this, but I think it's an incremental progress that one needs to make towards self-love. And again, I want to stress, it's not only to say women should do this. For me, for example, I'm going for a manicure, pedicure. I feel, that's really nice. But what is it that, other people do? I think that sharing, that role modeling, learning lessons and experiences from others is very nice. Like Charlene says that, I know that I do a lot of screen time. But my question then to you, Charlene, is, okay, if you realize that is the case, then what are you doing?
Oh, I'm downloading an app soon. I told him I'm going to put those locks and be like... But again, it comes with the work,
practice,
right?
And being conscious.
Very conscious.
And also, as you said, being mindful. And when you're mindful, you realize.
Yeah.
And when you realize, then you act on it. And
But
then it
here's
gives you
the
good
thing
results.
with being mindful, you also get carried away. How do you keep bringing yourself back? Because that also requires a lot of energy to keep bringing yourself back. And then for 1 week, you have done very well. Next week, you are back. How do you make a change that is sustainable?
Perpetual habit, as you mentioned,
Habit. And there's a very nice book that I read, The Power of Habit. I encourage everyone to read it. How to, hardcore our habits, make them hard-coded rather.
I'm just going back to men again. And I'm just thinking of a guy who's probably watching this and going like, I'm a guy, self-love, this is woman stuff. What kind of benefits would people in general see when they start getting into all these habits that we've just spoken about?
So I'll take this, story a little bit, to where it all starts, we as women have always been relegated to traditional rules that you must look after the family, you have children to look after, make sure the food is ready on time, the children's homework is completed on time, the man is going to go work, and, it's going to be a long day for him. He's working very hard. When he comes in the evening, he's the only person who's allowed to touch the remote control because he can watch all his sports channel, and he's the only one who can have his legs up, and all those things. So I think it comes from that sort of a traditional belief, like men were always hunters, right? They would go hunt and then... So I think it comes from that sort of belief system that men are the ones, Now, because they have to conform to that belief system, they don't feel that, we need a break. I always encourage my male staff also, you can cry. Who has told you can't cry? I think it takes a lot of effort for a man to, just say, I'm tired. It's always that, shock wave and, I am the man, I'm wearing the pants in the house. I cannot have this. I'm okay. I'm immune to it. But I always say, there are times in your life that inevitably you are going to feel low. Inevitably, whether you confess it, whether you cry, whatever what you do, you will still have a breakdown. And that's why when you hear, and you see statistics, men having midlife crisis, there's now something called men also go through menopause. There's also that time. So it's a new conversation that I've been reading around, that there are things that also men go through around. And I think when that happens, I think that acknowledgement is so important. Now, self-love for a woman may be slightly different for a woman than it would be different for a man. Maybe going to the gym may be something that relieves him. Maybe having a drink with his friends is great. But I think that there's also a lot of pressure from around the world and the family that dad knows everything. He's the encyclopedia of the family. But understanding, like when sometimes we ask my husband, Abu, how does this happen? And he says, let's Google it together. Let's Google it together. We will learn it together. So I think to be able to acknowledge the fact that I don't know and we can learn together, I think is a great style for us. The other thing is that allowing, these men, I know we're talking a bit about self-care and self-love, but I think it's also for the man to appreciate the role of a woman and doing activities of self-care and self-love together. And it comes to a point where, before traditionally women were not working. It's now, maybe let's say 10, 15, even more, maybe 20 years where now women are properly in the workforce. Like 70% of the healthcare workforce are women now. And when you realize that, you are able to appreciate your wife in a different dimension, that she's not my competition, but she is my support in running this household. She is my partner in her running this house. So our bills are joined. It doesn't mean that, when the electricity bill comes, I am the only one writing the check. I am the only one paying the school fees. I am the only one who's paying for movie tickets. You realize that there is more respect that is created in that. So doing those activities also together for, having self-love is equally important, Rajveer. I don't think men should confine to those roles and say, okay, I can't cry. No, if I cry, what will my child think? What will my husband think? What will my mom think? And those kind of things. I think we have to break away from those stigmas. That in this world, in this changing world, when you're seeing, there are geopolitics involved, trade unions getting negotiated, people having a voice and everything. I mean, you can have an acknowledgement to say that I need to take a break here.
How would you approach the conversation of breaking a traditional man with that mindset?
I would not really say that I have experience in doing that, because I come from a background where my husband has been my strongest supporter, Charlene. I mean, where I am today is, of course, thanks to the abundant blessings of the God Almighty. But when I got married, as I was saying earlier on, that, I got my child when I was 22. I hardly had studied enough, and it was a love marriage, so everything happened very quickly. But I think most of my education and qualifications, whether it was getting my CPA, becoming a bachelor's degree holders, master's, and now I'm doing my PhD, has all been through the incredible support of my husband. He doesn't come from a very traditional mindset. He has 4 sisters, so he's grown in a family of women. And he really understands me. If I want to do something and I'll say, what, I want to do this. And he'll say, okay, fine. How can I help? How can I help you? So I would say I'm really blessed, to be able to experience that kind of love, affection, and support from him, even up to now, when we're so many years into our marriage. Even when I took the arduous task of starting a PhD, he told me, what can I do? Why don't we have some tasks delegated, Let the children be dropped by the school transport, for example. You don't have to go and drop. Try and relieve yourself of certain duties that you safely can. When you need to have school nights, how can I support you? So I would not be able to entirely comment that how do I change a tradition, because I don't have that kind of experience. I'm on the other side of the table where I've had a very supportive environment. But I think for those people who are perhaps struggling and they do have, those kind of, I think it's all about conversation. I know some people can be very hard-coded with their beliefs, but I think it's all about having a conversation. And they say that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So maybe that can be something, something that, we can consider together.
So what kind of tools is your husband practicing when it comes to self-love and self-care?
So my husband is not only an ENT surgeon, Charlene, but he is also a musician. So he plays very many instruments. He has got 4 albums, to his name, which he has sung with his sisters. Just about a month ago, he launched his 5th album. So he enjoys singing and he enjoys writing a lot. And every morning, they say in practice, they do a lot of riyaz. So every morning he indulges into that. He loves watching television. Yeah, he loves watching. So sometimes you hear, I'm like, you're watching this channel without me. He's like, yeah, it's about World War II. I don't think you would be interested. Of course I'm interested. And, he does those kind of things. He also believes in a lot of walking. So we go to Karura Forest in the weekend. We do a lot of walking together. I feel that the walk is not only as a fitness regime, but it also gives us time to disconnect from social media, from the usual admin of life. And we talk about life, that what are you up to? How's your work? What are the challenges that you are experiencing? And the good thing with my husband is that he's always a constant learner, always learning new things, We always say that, Abu is the encyclopedia of the house because he's good in chess, he's good in tennis, he's good in badminton, he plays so many instruments, he can sing, he can write, he's a fantastic ENT surgeon. He's got all these things that, he has done. So we always know that he's got the answers of everything. But when we see that he sheds himself and there are certain things he can't do, then it gives us encouragement. Oh, look, Abu, I told you this, or I told you that. So I think for him, these are the kind of things that he does. He enjoys his music a lot, listening to music a lot. And I think that, I would say, is his biggest act of self-love for him.
So just going back to the benefits of self-love.
One, I think you get more connected to yourself, number one. You feel that inner peace coming with yourself. You're doing things for yourself. The other thing that you are able to be more present with where you are. You can be sitting here with me, but your mind is in Tanganyika, for example. So I think it really encourages presence where you are. When we are at work, we always think that we want to be at the beach. And when we are at the beach, we always say we want to be at work. And that balance becomes very tough for us. A lot of people say, okay, Toseef, when you go home, switch off your phone, don't reply to emails. But what should I do about my thoughts? How do I control my thoughts? I may be sitting at a dinner table with my family, but I can have one of the brightest ideas the next day and say, this is what I'm going to implement at the MP Shah Hospital. So it's about, having that balance that you can't disconnect. You can't really say, okay, now I'll never think about work when I'm sitting with my family. Yes, it creates a lot of presence of mind. You get grounded, you feel rejuvenated, you feel really nice and everything. But I really want to encourage our audience that it's not black and white. It's very difficult to, and I can say that from my personal experience. You wouldn't believe sometimes, even when I practice a lot of self-love and I go to Karura Forest for 30 minutes, I'm thinking about how to launch the next best MRI in the hospital. And I get very great ideas. It doesn't mean I'm in the forest and, I'm connecting and I'm only thinking about, how beautiful the forest smells and the eucalyptus leaves. So I think that is very important. So 1, of course, is connecting with yourself. 2 is having presence of mind. 3 is about having a balance. Now you create a balance. I think it also makes you a better human at a spiritual level, because you start having more compassion. When we attend religious functions and everything, they say, okay, we know everything. The Gita says the same thing all the time. The Quran says the same thing all the time, But I think it's constant reminders that make our our heart soft. Because, this world makes us very hard. We see murders, we see negative news, we see what is happening in Russia and Ukraine, we see what is happening, in the US political system, we see what is happening, in Gaza, for example. All these things affect us and our hearts become very hard. I think when we practice all that, we also become more tender. Our approach to other humans becomes more compassionate. We are able to express more empathy with people. And I think eventually we even become better parents.
There's so many things that you mentioned, journaling and all. You start breaking belief systems that don't serve you anymore. And again, that leads to being a better human.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are so many things now, I think there's power also of something that I really want to mention at this point of breaking your belief system is that if you have grown up with a system that I'm not good enough, you will always think you're not good enough. And if you think you're so good, you'll always think, how dare that person challenges me. So here the power of self-talk comes a lot. I'm good. I'm enough. I'm okay. I am loved. I am enough. I think self-talk is very, very important. I used to keep saying, I can't do this. No, this is not something that I can do right now. But I kept challenging my self-limiting beliefs. Said, no, I can do it. Who said I can't do it? A lot of people say, Toseef, now, today you're going for this podcast. Tomorrow you're going for an interview. How are you managing? How are you doing? It's about prioritizing for me. That this is important for me now. Something else can wait. And then again, I'm going to pick up when I'm 100%. In our leadership journey, sometimes you realize you get a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things together, But you as a leader have to also practice saying no. Self-talk is important, but also how to say no, setting boundaries for yourself. I always give the analogy like just the way our skin sort of protects us, our hair protects our head. That way we also need to have boundaries around us to protect ourselves and saying no. And it's very difficult to say no. I can tell you that. It's very difficult. But once you get into the practice also of saying no, I think it becomes a very powerful habit for all of us.
I think it's a huge form of self-love.
Yeah.
Saying no.
Yeah.
Is it easy being diplomatic?
It's very difficult being diplomatic sometimes because how do I say no and that thing is leading to my promotion? How do I say no when that is going to land me in the next potential job opportunity? How do I say no because he's more senior than me? How do I say no because he's in an influential position? So I think diplomacy does come into pass, but you must be very careful how you fashion that diplomacy because it can lead you into the well also. How to say no is an art that you must practice. Yes, diplomacy is important, but I think it's also about prioritizing yourself. When you realize that this thing is important for me, you'll do it. When you say that it's not really important for me, that diplomacy will come in itself.
I just want to add something going back. I think humility is also very, very important.
Absolutely, Charlene. I can't thank you enough for bringing that. I think humility is such a cornerstone of leadership first, even more than anything else. I think in my leadership journey, I have often seen the power of humility. I think it has been transformational for me. And where does this humility come from? It also comes with very strong beliefs and a very strong religious belief system as well. Because if you treat every human with kindness and you say that that person is as important as I am to anybody else, I think that plays a very crucial role in humility.
It also brings that balance between I'm not good enough
Yeah.
and I'm too good for myself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They say your strengths also become your weakness. So there's a strength exercise that, we usually do that. What are your strengths? For example, I may say my strength is that I'm very confident. But you realize when you're a very confident person, you're also becoming a poor listener. So how do your strengths work against you is a very important exercise also to carry out.
So it's basically doing a SWOT analysis on yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. SWOT and self-check-ins. We always say at work that when was the last time you did a performance appraisal with yourself? We are always appraised, right? You did this well, your numbers are this. But when did you sit in and do a performance appraisal for yourself? I think there's transformation in that.
Just to kind of add something to what you said, for me, self-love and self-care is I do a self-inventory character check and I'll be like, how am I going to improve my anger management?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to improve of being blunt?
Okay.
How am I going to improve on my triggers?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to improve on what flaws do I have? So it's more of being aware that I need to keep improving and working on all these traits. Because the moment you feel better with yourself, because the people will pinpoint things at you. Just so we said, sometimes people will say, you're a female leader, you're in this position. And people will tell you stuff.
You can't make everyone happy. I can tell you that for sure. I often get asked to see, do you want to be a leader who is loved or do you want to be a leader who is feared? What kind of a question is that? Okay, I prefer love, fear. Okay, then people won't listen to me. So it's a very tough balance, to be able to strike that kind of thing. But I think it's all again, about what do you really, want out of it all? I think that's an important question one needs to ask. And again, I want to talk to you about a very transformational video that I heard, and I've been hearing it for the last few years. It's a video by Earl Nightingale. It was recorded decades and decades ago. And he said, how do you define success? What is success to you? So he says success is pursuing a worthy ideal. And it can be different for so many reasons for different people. So what is it that, you are pursuing? What is success to you? You can't please the world. I've noticed that no matter what I do, if I please Rajveer, I may make you upset and vice versa. You can't. I think it's an impossible task. Yes, there's diplomacy, but it's very difficult because the biggest culprit then is of jealousy. And that is something that is very difficult to control at a human level. Not everyone is happy where you are. Not everyone is praying for your wellness and your well-being because that's the way we are as humans. That's the unfortunate truth.
Coming to self-wellness, I've had diets all over the place. I just want to go back to diets because... So I was saying, Rajveer, that we're kind of programmed to have 3 meals a day or 6 meals a day because we see it on media and that's what we're told. I'm doing something so different.
Okay.
It's called the OMAD diet. I'm just having one meal here.
Okay.
So I'm doing 1 meal a day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was saying, I feel so good.
Okay.
My brain's running on 180 kph right now. And if I had the 3 meals a day, I'm lazy. I'm having all these stupid negative thoughts. And I told him everything's related to your gut. Just the good feeling. Otherwise, it's like, oh, this hurts, that hurts, and my mind's
and it's
all over the
working
place.
for you.
Yeah,
and it's sustainable. And I think that's what I'd really commend. If it's sustainable, it's working for you. I think what works for me is when we have our holy month of Ramadan and we fast oh my goodness, Lord, let alone the secondary benefit of losing some kilos. But I think it really grounds you, mentally. I think fasting is so powerful. So what I try to do is that, occasionally when I can, I try to fast. Yeah, full fast. We start at about 5 a.m. up until 6:30 p.m. And I can tell you it's transformational.
Yeah, it is definitely one of the forms of self-love. So just coming down into breaking down self-love, from what I've understood in this conversation, is things that make you from within feel happy and feel good. And at least
I love that question.
when you do connect with yourself,
Yeah.
the mental chatter just goes down. But of course, it takes setting routines, discipline, but it must be done.
Perpetual habit.
Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you something very simple, Rajveer, and you laugh at it, Whenever I feel down and I feel tired and I say, okay, you know what? Let me take a break. Now, here's the thing with leaders. We only take a break when something major happens to us. Like maybe we got a heart attack and now we have to change our lifestyle. And if I don't do this, I'll die soon. Or maybe we have been diagnosed with some illness that will take a long recovery period. That is the problem with leaders of now. We only stop when something triggers us. And that's a very bad thing. And I think when I learned that, I realized how to take regular breaks in my day. Every 1 hour, maybe I just get up. Maybe I just go out. Maybe I have a cup of coffee. Maybe I just walk in the hospital. I think that era of taking breaks regularly should really be encouraged. Some things that really, when I'm really overwhelmed, of course I take breaks and everything, but one of my favorite go-to snacks is a simple tea scone, and a cup of tea or coffee, depending what I want that day. And I sit. I sit with myself and I have a conversation with myself. That really grounds me and it calms down that chit-chat, that chatter that is going on in my mind, because this is something I thoroughly enjoy. It becomes a sacred activity for me.
So it's a mechanism of rewarding yourself.
Yeah, and I sit and I say, this is my time with myself, a hot steaming cup of coffee with a nice gently warmed tea scone, and it's my time to connect with myself and no one interrupts me. I think it really helps me a lot. The second thing that I do is that I try to recall the last happy moment I had. Maybe it could be my 40th birthday. I was the happiest, I took a break from work. I went to Naivasha for a day trip. I danced in the rain. I saw wildlife. I relived that moment and I feel it transports me to a very different world. So the encouragement to you guys and the audience is relive those happy moments again and again. Think about when you were last happy, and I think it immediately calms you down because now you're in a different era. Maybe the happiest moment was when Charlene got married, got a lot of gifts and a fantastic wife. So what were those happy moments for you? And there are so many. It's just that we don't sit and write, this was the time that I was happy. We are so focused on what we don't have and so focused in feeling miserable in the things that we want to do, get done and have in our lives that we forget what we already have and what are the last happy moments that we have lived.
It's great that you bring that up because funnily, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you do keep thinking about these moments that you had so much, they come again.
Yeah. Come again.
Yeah.
Come again. There's so many happy moments, so many happy. It's just that we don't take time to center around them. And that's why there's power of journaling. Because in the journaling act, what you also do as you conclude journaling, you write the 3 things that you're grateful for.
And also adding affirmations every single day.
Affirmations, self-talk. Again, there are very beautiful videos on YouTube by a lady called Louise Hay. And they run for like 1-2 hours and it's just positive affirmations and positive. And you realize that you're changing the narrative.
Your brain.
Every time you're in a car, for example, instead of listening to, music, listen to, by the time you're home, you realize, wow, someone has really calmed me down.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, I've even like fully moved into listening to songs that are very uplifting in terms of the lyrics, I'm good and I'm feeling all right. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of songs like that instead of songs that just talk about negative circumstances. And it's like, why are you listening to it? You're programming yourself into that negative talk.
True.
And also you mentioned the coffee thing. So there was a time when I went through depression, and it always just felt like I needed to escape and I didn't know how. And then I started getting into self-love. And, you know, like I opened up my heart. I'm like, okay, you know, women talk about taking coffees and just sitting and watching TV or, you know, just pampering themselves. And I'm like, let me just do it for myself. So I made myself the green tea. Like I didn't ask someone to make for me. I made it for myself, and I sat on the sofa. I had a chocolate, and I'm like, let me put on an episode of Friends. And immediately, like you mentioned, it just calms you down.
That's a really nice story. You know, just hearing what you're doing is already very calming for me. You know, Rajveer making a cup of green tea and, you know, sitting, enjoying, you know, having a date with your television. I think men need to do this more. As I said, you know, there are so many things, but it's what really works for you.
Mine's going to the gym, picking up some dumbbells and
for sure.
music. And when I'm out and I'm like...
And I think also expression of love is self-love. You know, when you hold hands of your partner and are walking, you feel calm. You feel calm. How often do we do that? That, you know, today I just want to hold your hand. I don't want to say anything.
My wife is a bundle of joy.
Okay.
She brings all that stuff. Love to
you
me.
need to listen to this very clearly.
I bring her up on every podcast.
Yeah, good.
So so that's one way to check if she's listening to that.
Yeah.
But no, it's great how you've brought up so many tools and things that we relate to, and everyone is fighting a battle. Anyone who's listening to this, meditate, journal, take a walk. Change of environment was a big thing that I heard through the talk, and I personally feel that I'm going to take that initiative to have a change of environment.
Right.
Because sometimes, yes, you work within four walls, and it can be crazy, and then your mind feels like you're caged somewhat. So change of environment.
I've also seen, like you mentioned, change of environment. So, like, you know how your place, it's very minimal outside, and then your lights, the orange bulbs. So I did the same thing at in my sitting room. I love interior design, and it's something that I keep. It's my form of self-love.
I love that too.
Yeah.
You know, cleaning the kitchen is therapy for me.
It is.
It is. You know, I sometimes when I'm sitting at home and I take leave, you know, I was like, today, let me clean the cupboards. Let me purge things that I've not been wearing. You know, we humans hoard a lot. Huh? And you talked about minimalism as an act of self-love. It's transformational, Rajveer. I mean, it's really important because, you know, human beings keep saying we want. And it's very difficult for us to give those things away. So now that you practice minimalism, I think it's really an act of love, self-love.
Also skincare. Like I take care of my skin. I have a routine.
So what's your beauty routine?
So I cleanse. I put the vitamin C serum.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. So alternate.
Okay. No, I'm trying. I need. It's a 7-step routine.
Let me tell you.
Okay. All right.
So alternate is niacmicide, and then it's called
niacinamide. Salicylic acid. Okay.
And then I do it's a AHA plus BHA exfoliator once a week.
Okay.
And then I put my SPF, very important. And then hands and legs is just like normal, good moisturizer.
Okay, all right. That's something that I am definitely inspired because the only thing I do in the morning is to put astral cream and I'm out, you know, with a little bit of lip makeup and that's it.
Oh no, SPF is so important.
Yeah, and no, I do put an SPF. And that's pretty much it. But I'm really inspired, Charlene. I would really want to go home with your beauty routine because that's something that I've really been wanting to do, but I haven't really been able to get that, you know, that vitamin C and serum, and so I hope it's sustainable.
No, it works. Yeah? And then also for your eye bags, my wife gave me this. It's like a roll-on, so it tightens up your eye bags.
Right.
Yeah. So sometimes
we need to have a separate podcast on men's beauty and skincare.
We're planning
we forgot about the beard. So
okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. So there's the beard oil.
Oh
the beard
yes,
balm
I've been hearing beard has its own chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then again, smelling
struggle
good
with it.
and smelling good is very
Oh,
important.
it's really good as well.
Ask him like, so you went and opened my cupboard. You must have seen a ton. It's nice to smell good.
Of course,
Of course, yeah.
It has a different, feeling on the sensory, mind. I think it definitely.
And I feel
yeah.
really good when I smell good.
Yeah.
So if
Fashion
those
as
men-
well.
Yeah.
Fashion as well. Looking good.
Yeah, fashion. Yeah,
Looking sharp.
Yeah, those are great advice.
Yeah, today we tried putting on shirts.
Okay, but your fashion memo was very difficult for me to wear white. I mean, I do wear white, but not so often. Like, now where do I get white
I think
from?
I think you look perfectly fine. I think.
When we usually do other interviews, they say, don't wear striped and don't wear white.
Oh really?
Yeah. So when you said wear white, I was like, okay,
We're
now
breaking the norm.
we are breaking the norms, and you talk about the spirit of men. So when I told my husband I'm going for this, like, spirit, white, where is this going? But of course, it's good to always follow these small acts. I mean,
We stepped into a meditation center and we saw the simplicity in the white, and it's so easy to accept.
Yeah, colors play a very big impact on our lives,
And it's so calming.
Yeah.
It's like when we look at ourselves, we're like, it's just so soothing and calming.
There's
to
a
the
reason
mind.
why hospital walls are white.
Okay, I'm seriously thinking wrong.
Hospital walls are white. That's just like a bit depressing. It's like a weird bluish white.
No, but now it's changing. I think color plays a very transformational, aspect of all our lives. Like the MP Shah Hospital, we've really tried to play in with color. Before, you would go into an MRI department and just see a white wall on your left and a white wall on the other side. But now when you go, we have got beach wallpapers. So you're in an MRI, but you've got a beach surrounding. And I think that plays a big part in your healing process as well. In, having biophilic designs, having plants, having greenery around you, walking on the grass with your feet bare. I think all these things are all acts that are beautiful in self.
Gardening is another.
Yeah.
There's
do
so many
men garden
tools.
enough? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
plants.
Like
I
you
have a
guys
place called Shraddha House.
All right.
Yeah, again, it was just a whole mix of building, interior design, and gardening,
Lovely,
plants.
lovely.
So yeah, I just think basis is there's a lot of forms of self-love, but the first step to get there is to having an open heart.
Open
and
heart,
breaking that
acknowledgement
belief.
to yourself that you need it. It's important. It's become a strategy of your life. It's not something that, you think about doing. It becomes your life.
It should be
A way of
like
life.
a strategy.
Yeah.
I actually, now that you mentioned that, I think a great analogy for men would be, because we love video games. Like when you're going through a game, right? You keep getting in fights with the bosses and stuff, and you
Right.
lose life. But there's ways to replenish that life, right?
Right.
So in our real world
Yeah,
situation,
yeah.
self-love is that form of replenishing our life.
yourself. That's such a beautiful analogy. In fact, I'm going to use it. I'm not a big fan of video games, but I think your analogy really relates, that it's something so practical. Sometimes the small, simple things, that can become a big change, in your life. As I always say, something that I have said, that even if, this podcast is recorded over a 2-hour period, but if there's one thing that somebody takes from the podcast and makes that one change in your life, you feel that you have done a big service to humanity. You're able to give something that you've learned through your experience to somebody else to make them better.
True.
Yeah.
Also finding the state of inner peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is the core.
Yeah.
The core of this whole conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for
You're
coming
welcome.
on to the podcast,
You're
Toseef.
welcome.
Such
Yeah.
a beautiful
it's
conversation.
Really amazing. It's really amazing to be with you guys. I think you've asked me such wonderful questions. I have thoroughly sharing my personal stories, from my family, from my work, and my personal experiences. I just hope that you guys carry on this lovely and wonderful work, and I hope everyone listens to this and is able to make a change. We may listen to a lot of things, but only a small percentage execute, and there's power in execution. Executing and saying, today from this podcast, this is what one thing that I'm going to do. Then the change starts.
I love that. Execute.
Yeah.
Because ideas are nothing if you don't execute.
Absolutely. You have to execute.
And you mentioned it
and don't
rewards.
seek validation. We humans, what do we want most? Always saying, I wish I am appreciated. I wish someone tells me something. I wish my work is... But when was the last time you went outside and you bought yourself a bouquet of roses for yourself? You appreciated yourself.
Rajveer gives me the flowers.
Yeah,
So it's
he
fine.
gives you flowers. I'm beginning to get worried now.
They were for my mom.
It's
So
just-
it was
it's just
sweet.
romance.
Yeah.
No, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I really appreciate again, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you for having me on this men's forum. As I said, because it was a men's forum, and I felt that, there was a need for more women representation, because I'm very passionate about women empowerment. But I'm glad the conversation has even, centered in on a lot of self-love, both for male, female, our children, our families, our parenting styles. And I think to conclude, yes, that inner peace is very important, because you can do all these acts of self-love, but you do not have inner peace with yourself. You realize then you're in a situation of the devil and the dark blue sea. And for those who are not acknowledging that they're depressed and they're anxious, go out there, speak about it, because your journey is going to make a change for somebody else. Don't be shy. Don't be thinking that, mental health and well-being is a taboo topic. It's something that I cannot talk about, or it's going to make me less of a man or less of a woman, or it's going to be the reason why I'm not going to be promoted, or it's going to be the reason someone is going to shame me or is going to gossip about me. Go out there, speak more about mental health and well-being, speak more about self-love, self-care, whatever you want to call it. Acknowledge it. Depression is not a life imprisonment. It's something that happens to a lot of people, and we need to be able to develop coping mechanisms, share our journeys, share our stories, collaborate, and make life better for somebody else.
And with that, thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode of the Men's Forum.
If you have any questions with our episode today, please comment below.
And if there's other topics that you want us to discuss in any future podcast, then also let us know in the comments below.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Peace.